This is Louie, Professor Louie, and I'm excited to be here on the Jim Master Show. But before we get into that, just a little bit about myself. I'm up here in Woodstock, New York. I work for the great group, The Band. I have my own group, Professor Louie and the Crowmatix, that's playing music all the time. I've had a very long history in the music industry behind the curtain or behind the glass and in front of the glass for stages. I got my name, though, from one of the great musicians and one of my best friends from the band, Rick Danko, who we traveled a lot as a duo together, plus traveling with the band. And he gave me the moniker Professor Louie because Louie is my middle name, and the band used their middle names. Now I'm excited to be here with Jim from the Jim Masters Show. I got to close this accordion up. It's an old timer, doesn't have an air pressure, which we could discuss accordion lessons at another time. But I am excited to be here with Jim at the Jim Masters Show. And here we go. Let's start the show, Jim.
Very cool, my friend. That's one of the great intros of all time here on the Jim Masters Show. I love it.
That's great, Jim. I'm glad you appreciate it.
You did all the work for me. I'll just sit back and watch. That was awesome. I love it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
We are very honored to have Grammy-nominated music legend Professor Louie joining us from New York, from the Woodstock area in New York. Beautiful spot there in not quite upstate, but sort of upstate. If you're from like the city or if you're from Long Island, anything north of the Bronx is considered upstate. I know coming from Long Island originally, out east on Long Island in New York, anytime we would go north of the city of the Bronx, Manhattan, or any of that, even if you were going to White Plains, you were saying you were going upstate for the weekend.
Going upstate, that's right.
And people will be like, we're in White Plains. That's not upstate. Syracuse is upstate.
Well, and Buffalo gets even farther up, farther over anyway, yeah.
It is so great to have you here. I know you're a busy guy. You've got so much going on. I just mentioned to you, which it's 1 degree of separation. Life is 1 degree of separation. And I mentioned to you that just the other night, we had Larry Matthews from the Dick Van Dyke Show on as a special guest. And he's been with us several times and is a great supporter of our show. And I mentioned, Dick Van Dyke and being an admirer of his and also just enjoying all of his body of work. And that he's, going to be 100, the whole bit. And of course, Professor Louie, who's worked with, who knows everybody, he has a little Dick Van Dyke connection and story.
Yeah, we're on the same record together. There's a label out of Memphis, a blues label called Blind Raccoon Records. Betsy Brown down there, she's a great supporter of the blues, and she puts compilations every once in a while out. She said, can I put one of your songs on my latest compilation? I said, of course. And on this compilation shows up a song by Dick Van Dyke, fairly recent one. Unfortunately, I don't have the record in front of me, so I can't remember which song he performed, but it really fit in. It was really contemporary, and it was quite an exciting thing for us to be part of a record with Dick Van Dyke on it. So that's cool.
Dun, yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Can you play that on the accordion?
Well, you probably can, but that's enough of that.
There's a lot of fees involved when you do that. It's right. It's so great to have you here, and your body of work is extraordinary. You've been doing this for a long time, and I think it's really cool that you're living your passion too, and you are revered in the industry, as I mentioned, Grammy nominated too. But what's the very first instrument you ever played?
The very first instrument was probably the acoustic piano. I got to say, professionally speaking, it might have changed, but I think I used to play a little bit of accordion with my friend Johnny Palaccio when he would go out and go see his girlfriend, and his mother wanted him to practice the accordion. I'd sit in his room, lock the door, and practice the accordion while he'd go out the window. But so I did play a little accordion when we were young, but the acoustic piano was it. Yeah.
The acoustic piano first. And so how many instruments do you actually play, Professor Louie?
Well, I have played 5 or 6 in my time, but proficiently, I'm still working on that. But, piano, Hammond organ was one of the first instruments we played when we did the club circuit years ago, as they would have Hammond organs in the club, or in those days we were young enough to carry one around. But, the accordion, the Hammond organ, played a little bit of tenor sax in my time, a little bit of cello, and singing. Singing is an instrument, and I always like to keep working on the singing. I had great vocal coaches in my time. So singing is an instrument that I try to concentrate on all the time too.
Did you do this? Was this something that you were interested in when you were a kid? Were you always playing instruments? Were you part of bands in school? How did it all get started for you, Louie?
Well, professionally speaking, in school, I went to Peekskill High School, and which is outside of New York City, and we had a great music teacher there by the name of Vinnie Corazine, who was really into the kids, and even at a young age, you could pick any instrument you want and play. And in the summer, he opened up the school to you to go down and play, and he would have big bands at night, and you go down and watch it. And so my schooling and Peekskill taught me just about everything technically I had to know. And he also was a fairly young guy, so he would take us to his gigs, and maybe sometimes we'd sit in, or he'd take us to Count Basie shows and watch the big bands and have great arrangements. He just recently passed. And the thing that was great is I had a chance to pay him back because I was part of the New York State Blues Hall of Fame, and we had a show and inducted him. And he was still yelling us on the stage about different keys that we should play in. And he was always a great teacher. So I have to give credit to the school to really get me going. But what really spurred my interest up, when I would go see bands as a young kid, 12, 13, they sure looked like they were having the most fun on stage and getting the girls and all that stuff. So that really appealed to me.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, it's hard to tell, but it certainly was a good time in those days.
You had a good time, absolutely, which is, you sure did. And I mean, and we have some amazing photos too of you.
There we go. That's the first band. I think I was 15. That band won the New York State rock and roll. They had contests, and the contest winners of the New York State Battle of the Bands, that's what they called it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was huge.
In 1965, that band won the contest, and the winner went and played the New York State Pavilion at the New York State Fair. And there are pictures of it, but I couldn't find them, and I have them somewhere in my attic. They're big, and we brought our own go-go girls, and we played there every day for about a week.
Wow. What year was this again?
That was around 1965, 66. The World's Fair was at the Flushing Meadows, where the Shea Stadium or Citi Field is now, right?
Another Robert Moses creation. Absolutely.
Yeah.
World's Fair, as they were building Shea Stadium too, was happening, and just so much going on. Yeah, really,
and that's when I met Jimmy Cliff. His band was also the Jamaican Battle of the Bands winner, and all the Battle of the Band winners got together for a couple nights, as musicians would, even as a young kid, and hung out. And that was the first time I met him, which was great.
Wow. Of course, this is from the Peppermint Lounge days.
Peppermint Lounge, Meet Me Down, Baby, down on 45th Street. That was the famous one, the original one. And from the, Times Square in those days, that was probably around 69, 70. Times Square in those days had many clubs, great clubs, the Cheetah and the Wagon Wheel, and they would have two bands a night, and you would play there 6 nights in a row, 6, 7 sets a night. So you got to meet all these great musicians that were hanging out, and it was soul music at that time. So we got to see all the great soul musicians that went on to be big or didn't go on to be big. So that was the stage of the Peppermint Lounge, and that was the second band I had called Lotus.
That's really cool. What a great shot, too, I tell you, huh?
Pretty interesting. Well, I had a good Van Dyke. Talking about Van Dykes, that beard was called a Van Dyke. I had a manager at that time, a weird manager, and he said, "You look good with a Van Dyke beard," because everybody was sort of hippies in those days, but this was a soul band.
And too, the clothing is really cool, and it's amazing how what goes around comes around. A lot of that style you're seeing there is back, right?
It is back. Yeah.
You see it.
Yeah, and I had the white pants, which was pretty good. I don't know if I'd wear white pants these days, but maybe that was the uniform the manager made us wear.
Was that before or after Labor Day?
Yeah, right. That was it. Yeah, but we played the Peppermint Lounge. We were the house band there for about 9-10 months.
Wow.
6 nights a week, and it was a great learning experience. Well, now there we go. That's really a good
special.
shot.
Yeah,
that's really special. So after playing the Peppermint Lounge and being on the Times Square circuit and being with soul music, I would be listening to even when we were kids, we would listen to the AM radio and hear these gospel shows out of Harlem. And we started playing soul music. I started realizing those were the same songs we were playing, Midnight Hour and things. And I moved to downtown Brooklyn, And in downtown Brooklyn, Myrtle and Lawrence, it was a rough neighborhood. There was a subway stop there. And, I'd go down there and there was always an empty storefront, because that's where you would have, I think it was 33 floors down, tobacco shops and newspaper stands. This is going back to 70, 71, 72. I don't know. But I noticed one night I went down on Monday night and started hearing this great gospel music. So it turns out it was an after hours club, the Empty Room. And on Monday night, they rented it out to gospel groups. And so I started nosing around there was a great gospel circuit in Brooklyn, actually around the world, around the United States at that time, of groups. Now it turned into choirs. That group is called the Mighty Gospel Giants of Brooklyn. That was the most revered group in Brooklyn, just about. But there was the Brooklyn All-Stars, the Brooklyn Heavyweights. And on Monday nights, they would all come down and rehearse and check it out. The Flamingos would come down. The Mighty Gospel Giants were a revered group, tremendous. The Persuasions would come down and want to sign those guys up. They'd go to one show and say, they swear too much. And so I went on the gospel circuit for about 3-4 years with them, traveling all over, and saw the greatest gospel groups ever. The Highway QCs, the Soul Stirrers, the Rugged Cross Singers, Mildred Falls, the great piano player. And so I traveled that circuit for a couple of years and really learned a lot of my music and why people sang and why people played. It was a great living experience for me.
That's really extraordinary, Professor Louie.
And of course, the only white guy anywhere in Miles. And we go play places like down in Florida where there was no electricity. I would play the accordion and play the orange groves in Jacksonville, and really got to see what life was about. Tremendous, the whole different world.
Leaving the New York area, exactly, right.
Oh, yeah, with a group like that, yeah. And great conversations driving.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. And probably a lot of a cappella going on and everything, right?
Yeah, and got to work with, out of Long Island now, the Highway QCs, which was Sam Cooke's original gospel group out of Chicago, but the Leroy Kroon, the Kroon family moved to Long Island to live out in Long Island. They were known for the high falsetto singing and one of the great guitar players. And when I got friends with the family, turns out they moved to Long Island. I did a bunch of shows with them on different bills and different things. Some of the gospel shows would start at 7 in the morning and go to 11, 12 at night, where everybody get up and do 2 songs and you come back. So each time you would try to do better and better. So I learned about healthy competition, but real competition.
Really, really cool too, and learned it early, which is great.
I'm glad you said that. Oh, well, here we go. Okay. Well, right around, what year is that? That's 1970. I had this manager. We won't talk about the background of the manager because it was a pretty weird guy. But we went and played Asbury Park with this band called Lotus. And we played Mrs. J's Beer Garden, which is now one of the big clubs. It's not called Mrs. J's anymore. It's something else. And we made quite a bit of dough. And the manager decides, let's buy or let's rent the building next door. It was an old Hullabaloo. I don't know if you remember the Hullabaloo clubs.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That was a television show.
That's right.
And they decided, Hullabaloo decided they would buy these big warehouses and put shows on all around the country, which I played that circuit also with a group out of the Bronx, but that's another story. But anyway, so next to the Mrs. J's in Asbury Park was this big empty warehouse building that was a Hullabaloo. He decides he's going to rent it. And the group, of course, we had no money in those days. He said, why don't we paint the building because it looks terrible? So I go to the paint store with another guy. And in the paint store, the owner of the store says, well, we have road paint that the town just returned. There's too many gallons. We'll sell it to you cheap. It was this yellow road paint. In that store was Bruce Springsteen with his manager called Tink, because he lived in Asbury Park at the time, had local bands at the time. And said, I got this band down there. I'm painting my father's house. I'm buying the paint. And I explained to him, well, we played Mrs. J's. We're going to paint this building yellow. And then we named it the Sunshine Inn, which became, if you look it up, became a pretty popular club. And then I said to the manager, well, we just met Bruce Springsteen. He's got a band called Steel Mill. Let's hire him to bring his band because he's got a good following in Asbury Park. Nice guy. And we played together for months together down there, him at Steel Mill and me at Lotus, the Sunshine Inn. And then, unfortunate, the way the world works, they had these terrible riots down there. Asbury Park was a southern town and people were not getting treated well. But of course, the black part of town, which I was pretty familiar with being on the gospel circuit, I had no problem walking around and doing stuff. But people went crazy there. They didn't have food down there, nothing. So finally, after so many months of rioting and things breaking bad at the Sunshine Inn, we had to leave. But we did have good groups. Actually, I think that was Black Sabbath's first gig was at the Sunshine Inn. Iggy Pop, had a lot of groups. Chuck Berry, but we were a house band with Steel Mill and Bruce, and that was a good experience in terms of what can go on and playing shows a lot. So that's what that picture is. And I thought I'd send you the newspaper article about the Sunshine Inn. Yeah, offers rock music. Probably just opened up. That was probably the press right before the riots. And Mickey Azara was the lead singer of Lotus. His father was one of the great piano bar players of New York City. His name was Benny Martini, and he would be the head of Jackie Gleason's. He always claimed to me that the theme song, da-da-da-da-da-da, he said he wrote it. And when you listen to Benny's songs, it sounded like it. And he would have great stories, Benny Martini
Wow.
So I learned, I would go to visit him and I'd be playing piano bar with Benny. And that was a good experience, having 20 people shouting songs at you and you had no idea what songs they were.
Exactly.
And there we are, advertised in concert with Lotus playing the Steel Mill. Yeah.
That's so cool. That really is. Phenomenal engineer as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what happened was when the disco era came out and I was in New York, I wasn't a big fan of the disco music at the time because it was a little slick for me and a little too shiny for me. So I decided, because synthesizers were just getting invented and coming out, and being the keyboard player, I was pretty adapt to it. So I started nosing around the New York City recording studios, like Atlantic Records had a good studio, nosing around. And Tom Dowd, who was one of the most famous producers, engineers earlier on, he did Aretha Franklin and the Allman Brothers. And so I met Tom and I said, I'd really like to start learning how to engineer to make some money. And I was a cab driver in New York and driving a Tylo roofing truck at the time, trying to stay alive because I wasn't, the sort of the New York City music scene dried up financially. And so Tom said, well, come on, hang out. I'll teach you some engineering, but you got to wash dishes and all that stuff. I said, yeah, I'll hang out in studios. And so that was a picture of Tom showing me how to work the mixing board. So it was a great guy to learn from, one of the greatest, because when he first started engineering, you couldn't buy a mixing board. You had to build them. So me and him and another guy, we built a few mixing boards together. And it was great hanging out with Tom Dowd and learning my engineering skills from him, which allowed me to make a living for a bunch of years as an engineer. Well, there we go. That's another one. That's a good one. Levon Helm, he's got our back to us right now. One of the records I produced, that was one of the jackets called High on the Hog, the band. And so Levon, who became a pretty good movie star at one point, he would get called from people, and Steven Seagal decided he wanted to make a movie and practice as a musician. And in the movie, he was a carpenter and a musician on the side, and he loved the band song. So I got a job with the band in 1985. This might have been around 1993, 94. And Steven Seagal called Levon up, said, I want you to help me learn the band songs, come out to Hollywood. That piano right there is Little Richard's piano right across from the House of Blues. It's a hotel there, and Little Richard would keep his piano. So we rented the Little Richard's apartment there where he had the piano, met Steven Seagal. And slowly, one by one, the guys in the band sort of left the rehearsal. I think Levon was the last one to be there. So me and Steven Seagal played a couple of days, me showing him the band songs because we were going to showcase his movie and him playing the band songs with the band at the House of Blues in L.A. So that was me showing him how to play the songs and going over the songs. And Steven did pretty good. I got to say, he did pretty well, and it was nice hanging out with him, and we had some good discussions. Well, okay. This group, Mercury Rev, that's the name of the group. If you look them up, I still got the gold record on the wall. When they first started working with me, they were painting houses in Kingston. And somehow we sent the tapes to Virgin Records. Well, these guys were pretty ambitious, Mercury Rev. Sent the tapes to Virgin Records, and they got a huge record deal. and went on to become a well-known group in Europe. And so we hired Levon Helm and Amy, and that's Miss Marie, my writing partner and lifetime partner, to be on this record called, I can't remember the name of the record, Deserter Song. It went on to sell over 1 million copies, and I got a gold record on the wall for it. And that's from one of the sessions with Levon, Amy Helm, and Marie, myself, and the 2 guys from Mercury Rev. So that was a nice experience. All right. Well, here we got Bob Ludwig, who is one of the most famous producers, mastering engineers in the world. He's mastered more records and got more platinum records than anybody in the world for mastering. One of the nice guys. And he was in New York for many years, and we were friendly. And I went up to learn the mastering engineering trade from him and stayed there in his studio in Maine for a long time. He mastered every band record, which is where I first got to know him. He mastered the Big Pink records. And if you look him up, it's just, he still mastered Rolling Stone records. And he mastered every Bruce Springsteen record also. And one of the nicest guys, really mellow. And so I learned what the mastering engineers did. And of course, Atlantic Records also had a great mastering engineer that I would go visit also. But anyway, that's the picture of Miss Marie and myself visiting with Bob Ludwig up in Maine at his great studio up there. He's now closed it, but I think he still masters in his house, I'm sure. So that's what that picture is. And that's a proud moment for me to be friends with Bob Ludwig and learn the mastering trade from Bob Ludwig and the engineering trade from Tom Dowd. And of course, there's some other people along the way. Mm-hmm. So when I got to engineer, I just wasn't just because I could buy the equipment I was engineering. You know, it was a learning experience. And watched a tremendous amount of sessions from these master engineers.
It's extraordinary, right? And you just soak it all in and you gather it and just to take it with you. And again, these are extraordinary photos that we have with true legendary people.
That's why when I got a chance to make records with Dave Brubeck or Buckwheat Zydeco, you know, I knew how to act. I knew how to work with them.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the devil, Dave Brubeck.
Yeah, there we got Dave Brubeck. Yeah, I'm glad you've checked I don't know if I sent you too many pictures, Joe. I apologize for that. But
no, it's good stuff. This is really amazing. This is real music history here.
Yeah, that's the I probably made 5 or 6 records with Dave and his sons. Well, I did a couple Daves because he did a lot of the Peanuts movie when TV shows when Vince Guaraldi passed away, who was another, you know, West Coast piano player. Dave got the job. I guess I don't know, I wasn't part of that. And we did a bunch of Peanut I guess TV shows together. So I also worked with Dave a lot of times solo, and he was from Connecticut. And that's one of the shots that I got with his sons. His sons would bring Dave in and make records with him. And so that's it. That's Dan and Chris. So glad we've docked. You know, in those days, you know, the one thing I got to say with all my sessions, I never wanted to take pictures because one of the things about working with well-known and famous people, you really do. I felt I had to be very careful with them, not to feel I was trying to jump on their fame and jump on their situation and take advantage. I prefer to be part of the team and give them all the leeway and not make them feel comfortable and not be in awe, because that's what the gospel circuit told me or taught me. I saw people that were very famous in another circuit completely with tremendous amount of talent. And, you know, not to be in awe of them and just take it in. And so by the time I got to do famous people in the pop and rock and jazz circuits, I had worked with very famous people already from another circuit. So I wasn't in awe, and I knew how to speak with them and didn't take pictures. You know, of course, in those days, you didn't have cameras so readily. And they used to hire photographers, professional photographers, because people were worried about having their pictures taken unless it was by a professional and for a cause. And certainly when you're working in the studio, different from now, you didn't want your picture taken because you could be in an uncompromising position. You may not want people see you. You know, some people I'd work with, they want to lay on the floor and sing, or there was other kind of elements involved with their lifestyle.
Kind of like the guy that was at the Coldplay concert that was seen on
that.
Yeah,
you know,
Jumbotron.
Yeah, right. You know, I got this funny stories about that stuff. But yeah, so in the studio, so those pictures were taken by other people. I was just lucky enough I ended up with them, you know, because I don't know who took them. Maybe Marie took one. She snuck one in. but we were always very careful about how to speak to these people and taking pictures of them. And so there's a lot of moments that did get lost. But just as
I
well.
get that. I understand what you're talking about because there's many
Yeah.
times I've been in situations in television studios and what have you, and I've been tasked with working with, collaborating with, and or maybe even interviewing somebody who I've really admired, and I'm
Yes.
very excited to be in their presence. And like, this is this person I've always, wait a minute, how am I sitting next to them? And now I'm going to be leading them and interviewing them. And there is, when you are the professional, there is this fine line that you have to sort of dance around between being the admirer, the fan, reveling in their life and career, and being the professional who has the job to do. And sort of, it's a ballet act. And sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get, a photo or what have you. But one thing you can't do, and I've worked with a lot of people, usually people are just starting out in the industry who will sort of barge up to that person, that well-known celebrity or what have you, and say, hey, can I have your picture? Or can I have your autograph? You've just gone from the professional
Yeah.
down to somebody that's peeking through the blinds. And it's a fine line. There's a way to do it, but maybe if it's more where it's a collaborative thing, where it's shots where you're doing your thing or something, it's an interesting thing. But you do have, like I do, a wealth of fabulous photos of your career and the times within it. It's another great shot.
Yeah, that well, the other thing about doing that stuff is survival. In other words, if an artist doesn't like it or doesn't like it, they may not tell you, but the word gets out. And one way I always got jobs is word of mouth. But anyway, that is Levon Helm's recording studio, which now they turned into the Rambles, and Levon opened it up to the public after the band. But that was from probably a record called Jericho, where I was producing Levon. And this is a good example. I don't know who took that shot, but I was sort of letting him know how to play the drums on the track. It could have been from Atlantic City, or it could have been from Blind Willie McTell, but that was his studio that we set up. He had a nice room in his house that he built, and we set it up there. It was my studio for about 15 years. And I could tell that and he was looking away because he probably wasn't too happy with me at the time. And I'd say, well, if you want the song to connect the people, maybe we should do it again, and that's the stuff you don't want ever on tape in front of people. And you have to say it when nobody's around so they don't get, because, he's one of the greatest rock and roll drummers in the world and played on lots of records and, was playing rockabilly music in 1957 and 58 and knew how to play rock and roll, one of the greatest. When you hit the stage with him, we play rock and roll, you knew there was a force up there. And then to have to come out behind the glass and say, Lee, I think we should do this a little differently. You really have to be careful that he doesn't get ticked off at you and make sure there's nobody around listening.
Nobody hears that. Exactly right.
So that was a special picture. All right. Well, that is Graham Parker from Graham Parker and the Rumor. And Graham used to hire me to play keyboards. And I used to say to Graham, because he would have a good keyboard player, but they would call me in to sort of redo parts. And I'd say to Graham, don't put my name on the record. I'm just happy to have the work. And that's Dave Cook, one of the great engineers of our time in the middle there. He's still out there engineering for Todd Rundgren and people like that. And that's me trying to imitate Graham and have the sunglasses on so I'd be incognito. But I made a lot of records with Graham, and I finally worked my way up by saying that stuff to Graham and working with him. I finally worked my way up where I produced a couple Graham Parker records, and we became very good friends and still are. And he's a fantastic songwriter. Well, that is Jimmy Vivino from the Conan show. At one time, I was doing a lot of mixing for the TV shows in New York, the Letterman show.
Conan O'Brien show. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Jimmy was Conan's band leader.
That's right. Yeah. Wow.
And this is going back to that time. It looks like we went out afterwards for drinks.
Yeah. And then you worked with Letterman too?
I worked on the Letterman show, mixing sometimes the show. They would record it in the basement.
Yes.
And the thing is, before you would air it on television, they would mix it, to have a little better mix because they'd multi-track. It was before Pro Tools. It was 2-inch. Yeah. And you'd have to cut tape. And I was really good at doing stuff. And once in a while, they would call me in because somebody would make a mistake, and I would punch it in to the mix or punch it into the 2-inch tape right before airtime and do it really fast. So they would call me in for that stuff. I was an extremely fast engineer and knew how to cut tape, 2-inch tape and half-inch tape. I wasn't afraid to do it. And once in a while they would call me in, or to mix certain groups like Conan was the drummer was Max. I think he was the drummer. So Jimmy and I became close friends. We just played a show together at the Narrows Arts Center in Fall River, Massachusetts. So we've been friends for years.
That's so cool. You ever meet the announcer on Letterman? I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times. Alan Coulter. He was great. David Letterman.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we met all of them. We'd be there. But again, I
Paul
was
Schaefer, too. Probably.
Oh,
Paul
yeah. Well,
Schaefer,
Paul and I have had gigs together in pretty funny times because he's Canadian and we've played up in his hometown. There's a big blues festival up there. And we've played it, and he's come by. We also played the Plaza Hotel where he showed up and wanted to sing The Wait. He's Canadian, and he likes singing the band songs. So we have had experiences together, absolutely, and on the Letterman show. Yeah, because we showcased Atlantic City the first time it was aired on television when we cut Atlantic City with the band. I think that was probably the first time it was on national TV on the Letterman show.
Really amazing stuff. Extraordinary.
But again, I wouldn't talk to any of the, people. I don't think I did speak to Jay Leno. He was a little more accessible. But, actually, I brought Marie with me to the Leno show, and Jay Leno thought Marie was a guest, so he interviewed her in the dressing room, which was great. And she's telling about the songwriting and the singing. And then he finally said, "What song are you going to sing?" So I'm not singing today. I'm just here with the band because she sang on the band records. But anyway, yeah, but I always stayed away from, that's great. That's a great shot. So I always stayed away from talking to too many of the higher ups and just kept it to the engineers and the technical people and the musicians.
Kept doing what you do.
Yeah, I was kept to doing what I was hired to do.
Anybody just tuning in, we're talking to Professor Louie. He has emerged over 5 decades in the music industry as the torchbearer of the true spirit of American roots music. Seasoned live performer, prolific recording artist, versatile multi-instrumentalist. Professor Louie also wears the hat of award-winning record producer and engineer, capturing the talents of some of the world's most highly acclaimed musicians, most notably Rock and Roll Hall of Fame group, The Band, as he's talking about. Professor Louie worked with the band for over 16 years and produced their 3 comeback CDs in the 90s as well. And he has written, and along with Miss Marie, and published over 100 songs, which is extraordinary. And of course, there's a phenomenal group which we're going to talk about where he performs, and we've got some great commentary and photos on that as well. But cool stuff. We're talking to a music legend here, somebody who's touched our lives with music as a performer, but also as somebody who's helped create it behind the scenes for others as well. Here's another cool shot.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Jim, thanks so much for having me on the show. And those quotes, a lot of people wrote about me. I didn't come up with them, just to let you know.
Your mother didn't write those, right?
They certainly didn't. They just show up, and you see them now with the internet, especially. That's Tom Bones Malone, who is one of the great trombone players of our time. He did all the arrangements for the Letterman show. We became fast friends. He also produced the first Blues Brothers record.
Oh,
and
wow.
He's in the Blues Brothers. Yeah, he's actually accredited with all that music, doing the arrangements. He's one of the great arrangers of our time. And he plays on a lot of Crowmatix, my group, Professor Louie and the Crowmatix. He does our arrangements, and he also played on a lot of our records. He actually wrote a song for us, and that's us just hanging out. And he's a super nice guy. He lives in Los Angeles now, but he was on the Letterman show and with Letterman for years and years. And you still see him sneak on TV, but he's on a lot of records, tremendous amount. And he's from Mississippi. He arranges for all those marching bands down in Texas North State, which is, I think, the award-winning marching band. And so it's great to go down and watch him work that out, because there's hundreds of musicians out there marching around to his arrangements. So if you ever need an arrangement, Tom Bones Malone is the guy.
That is so cool.
Yep. All right. Well, that's Garth Hudson, the keyboard player from the band, who is one of my best friends, especially on the band bus. We'd sit up on I rode the band bus for 17 years, and we'd set up all night long. He's strictly about music. There was nothing else. And we would strictly do transcriptions, write out music that we would hear, he would have this little machine that could repeat passages, and he studied calligraphy. So his writing was just spectacular. And he was crazy about all music, but he really got fanatically about polkas. So we would go see polka shows all over the country when we were traveling. And so that's us dressed up, because he insisted on being dressed up when we go to the polka shows. And maybe we were going to go see Jimmy Sturr or some of the other great polka bands. And so we were getting ready to go to one. That was his outfit to go. That was my outfit go. And somebody snapped a picture of him and me getting ready to walk into the polka show of songs we had transcribed. So we became close friends. And, he is one of the greatest keyboard players of our time, because I have music with him that is uncanny. We once did a tour of every Nashville pipe organ, because, there's a lot of churches in Nashville. And we actually got a record deal once to go to every church in Nashville and record him playing on every pipe organ, because, he knew all the 4-part Bach inventions and tremendous music knowledge, accordion, saxophone, and organ. So there wasn't much he didn't know. And if you listen to a lot of besides band records, besides some of the live recordings, the playing is uncanny. It's really remarkable. Oh, well, there's another one, a good friend of mine, Commander Cody, George Frayne. That's us. Me and him played a lot of gigs together. We became close friends. I produced 3 or 4 of George's later records with the modern day Airmen, and maybe even one with the Lost Planet Airmen. And that's me and him playing a gig, because he was extremely generous. And he was well known, and he liked playing the big places, but he liked playing honky tonks. That was his thing in playing that music. And that's me and him maybe playing it. We played some duo shows, because he was also a painter. He's in the Modern Art Museum. And so we would do shows, having his paintings around the room, and me and him would do duo shows. And it was a great experience hanging out with the Commander.
Here's another great shot, my friend. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's somebody I miss very dearly. That's Buckwheat Zydeco, Stanley there. And we became very close friends. He wanted me to help him out with his recording. He did a couple of recordings. He had just won a Grammy for one of his recordings. He was actually a Hammond organ player from Clifton Chenier Sr., and moved it over to the accordion when Clifton died. And I was a Hammond player. So we became close friends. And he said to me, I'd really like to come up and you could help me out with the latest recording, him and his manager, and Dave Cook, who you saw the picture before of Graham Parker, who got me the gig with Buckwheat. And so we worked in the studio, and, he was such a nice guy, and his band was such a nice guy. I had to go on tour. I gave him the keys to the studio and just let him sit there for a month. And then we started playing shows together and became very close friends. And, my studio is on a 100-acre farm. I rent the studio, and he got the trailer stuck in the mud on the farm. And before you know it, every farmer in the area, this is going back, showed up to help Buckwheat out, because Buckwheat had a farm down in Lafayette. And so they became close friends. I couldn't get him back in the studio to record. These guys just kept coming and talking to him. They finally pulled the trailer out, because, the New Orleans groups and the Zydeco groups always pull trailers. It beats me why, but they do it. And the brakes lock. When you unhook that trailer, that brake locks. So you can't steal the trailer out of hotel rooms. So we had to take it off, and we had to actually lift the trailer up to get it out of the mud, because the brakes were locked with tractors. So it was quite a day. So that was Buckwheat and I after a show at the Clear Mountain Revival. He had just played the tent, and he had about 1,000 people screaming and jamming. He pulled out every trick in the book. It was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen him play. It was fantastic. That's Guy Davis. Me and Guy play a lot of shows. Guy Davis is a fantastic artist in his own right, and we've done Broadway plays together, writing music, and he has starred on Broadway. And he's an actor besides a great blues historian and blues player. And, he's proud of this. His father was Ozzie Davis, and his mother was Ruby Dee, who were very famous actors. So he's a very special person to work with, because he is complete royalty of America and overseas. And we have done European tours together and different shows together, just as duos. And actually, we just the play we just did music for was a play called Pearly Victorious that was on Broadway that Ozzie Davis wrote. It just starred Leslie Odom Jr. It was a revival, and it just won the supporting actor just won a Tony Award for it. And that's another very proud moment of mine because it was solo Hammond organ that I played during the play. It was a little bit invisible, but the actors knew it was there because they had cues off it. So Guy and I wrote that music. It was great. So it was nice to be part of that Broadway scene. He also starred in Finian's Rainbow, where he played Sonny Terry's part. So we did some music for that also.
Tell us about that, because we know you, of course, from the work on stage and in the studios and what have you, and talking about your prolific career behind the scenes. But your music, your work has touched Broadway. Has it got into film? Any film scoring? Of course,
Oh, yeah.
television. You mentioned television as well. You've really had your feet in all aspects of the entertainment industry, it seems.
Well, the Broadway scene is good for me because once I'll get called to play Joe's Pub with one of the great actresses down there that knows me. But it's sort of interesting because the way we do a lot of that is in the studio and then send it down to them. They're called stems, and then they put it around the theater wherever they want it and can change it any way they want it. Because a play like Pearly Victorious had no musicians. The music was not exactly a complimentary name, but that's the way they do it to make sure it works, called incidental music, but however, it's prevalent on the play. So that works. And then in the movies, I did a movie called Road to Wellville. And I did a lot of the scoring for it and a lot of the old music for it because they would actually shoot scenes to the movie. I would do that. I would go to the studio about 11 every night, record maybe, sometimes they would use the Hudson Valley Symphony up at the studio. We would record that. And then the next day they would shoot the scene to the movie. That was Alan Parker, the great Alan Parker, the movie director, and maybe producer who did The Commitments and the movie Road to Wellville, which was an interesting movie. It was about the cereal wars up in Battle Creek, Michigan, and all the different, spas and things up there. So that was a major motion picture. Starred a lot of people, not Jane Fonda, her daughter, and people like that. I have to look it up again. And then one of the funny ones I did was Demi Moore's first, I think, full-length movie where she was a rock and roll singer. I think it was because, again, I'm behind the scenes just writing songs and playing behind them. It was a movie called No Small Affair where she was a rock and roll singer and her boyfriend was a photographer who was trying to make her famous in the rock and roll world. And that was the music was produced by a very great band from Long Island called the Good Rats, with Pepe Marcello. And Pepe hired me to be the keyboard player with the Stevie Winwood band because Stevie Winwood obviously wasn't there. And so that was a good experience to play with them and hang out with them and write some keyboard play parts and a lot of solo pianos in that movie. So, that's the kind of movie, different things that I've done. And I once scored also a moon movie, which was great. One of the first science fictions. Well, that one you just showed there, that's a great bass player from the Jefferson Airplane, the original, Yorma and Jack Cassidy. That's Jack Cassidy. Me and him playing a festival together. You can tell we got the clock behind us to let us know when to get on and off the stage. Jack is a very nice guy, very humble, and he's still out there playing with Yorma. And once in a while, we'll cross paths. And Jack was in the original Jefferson Airplane, so he's one of the great electric bass players out there, and super nice guy. He'll hang out with anybody and talk to anybody. Fellow on the right is a fellow who books me shows once in a while, Tom Honan from Syracuse, and he was getting in there into the conversation. And so that's a nice picture. All right. Well, this is the most recent Professor Louie in the Chromatics. It's Todd Myhan on our left. That's myself. Miss Maria on the vocals in front. Dan Hickey on drums, who's with Shamika Copeland and Might As Well Be Giants. Great studio drummer. We've done a lot of records together, maybe 50, 60 records together. Frankie C on bass, who is Levon Helm's music director. We've been friends forever. He's another Woodstock guy who lives with us. That's the most recent promotion picture of the record Crowing Around, which is doing great for us. This week alone, I think it's up to about 173, 174 radio stations across the country. And there's one song on there that goes over great live and is getting picked up called Elevate Yourself. I even had a group last night talk about wanting to record the song, which is really a great compliment for us. So that's Professor Louie and the Chromatics' latest incarnation. Yep, Crowing Around.
How did you come up with the name for the group too? How did that develop? Boom.
Okay, well,
There we are.
that's a little lengthy story. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Right around the late early '90s when I moved to Woodstock, because I moved there mostly for the band, and I started playing locally because I was with the band more at that time. They weren't really together at that time in the studio. So there was a band called the Crows in Woodstock, and I started
Mhm.
hanging out with them. And Levon at that point said to me, or Garth said, we need to get some songs gathered up to play for these record companies. So I was playing in the Crows, and I said to the guys, why don't we come into the studio, demo up some of these songs we've been getting from different artists, and, start recording together. So I started recording with the Crows. Right around that time, Levon said to me, let's, because he got some movie scores. He said, let's put a band together. I want to play some solo shows with some local guys. And there were a lot of bands coming out called the Crows, the Counting Crows, the Black Crows.
Right.
So I said to Levon, well, we should keep the name the Crows because they were Levon Helm and the Hawks at one time with Ronnie Hawkins. So let's keep the bird name somehow involved. Let's make it a music name. And why don't we call it Levon Helm and the Crowmatix? And so Lee said, that's a good idea. So we started playing shows with Levon called Levon Helm and the Crowmatix, staying in the tradition of the band, keeping the spelling the same. Although I sort of lobbied for the Chrome Addicts. So that was good because, I like cars and the chrome.
Right.
But he
Yeah.
said, no, let's keep it the Birds. He insisted, let's keep it the Bird name. And Ronnie Hawkins would get a kick out of it because Ronnie was a great guy. So we called it Levon Helm and the Crowmatix. And then when Lee moved on, we changed it to Professor Louie and the Crowmatix because I had to front the band at that point because after Rick had passed, and at one point it was Rick Danko and the Crowmatix and Garth Hudson and the Crowmatix. But after Rick had passed, it was time to put my name up front because the promoters knew my name and hopefully could sell some tickets every now and then because, that's what the music business turned into. Just instead of just only playing, you got to sell tickets. So that's what we kept it. And I've been happy with it ever since because it has helped. Okay, well, there's Jose Feliciano who lives in Connecticut. And we used to play the Georgetown Saloon. And at one time he lived on top of it. And we became fairly good friends. And we used to see him, at the folk time, because at one time Jose was in that folk circuit, Richie Havens and Happy and Artie Trom. And, I used to go watch him play. And when Richie died and we did the benefit or tribute at Bethel, which is now, the original Woodstock site, they called a lot of us to play, Guy Davis, Miss Marie, myself, and we reacquainted ourselves and play with Jose. And I was able to get Jose on a festival down in Maryland called Common Ground Festival, which is a great organization. And so Jose, who also plays accordion, said, let's go down and do a duo show together, just accordion and guitar. There was an upright bass player. You might be a little bit over that way who sat in also. So that's me and Jose playing his repertoire. And I had to hold on for dear life because he's such a fantastic musician and an honor to play with Jose Feliciano anytime. Now that is the original Levon Helm and the Crowmatix with Levon there, second to the left with Jimmy Eppert, who was part of that was the Crow band. That was the band called the Crows, Jimmy Eppert and Levon Helm. Randy Shalanti, who went on to be the second drummer in the band during my stay. Mike Dunn, who is one of the great bass players of Woodstock, who unfortunately is with us, Miss Marie, and myself. And that was the promotional picture. They spelled the name Crowmatix right, which is always good. And Levon Helm, like that Coca-Cola commercial spelling, because he was a Coke fanatic. And we decided we would use his name in that same kind of font. And that's the promotional picture. And we probably played 15, 20 shows together. Now, we had played, Professor Louie and the Crowmatix played so many Canadian shows because we were connected to Garth and Rick Danko that they decided that Professor Louie and the Crowmatix, or Professor Louie myself, they use my regular name, should be in the Canadian Blues Hall of Fame. So this was the award show, and I never told them I wasn't from Canada. And they called us up to play. We got up there to play. They're giving me the star and said, okay, where are you from in Canada? And I had to inform them that we were from the States. It's just that we played so much in Canada because Ronnie Hawkins had brought property up, outside of Toronto. We were there, and they put me in the Hall of Fame anyway, which was really nice. We had a great party, and we still go up and play, and that's the award ceremony. The star's still there. This is really special. Sorry I don't have a little better shot of it, but this is a song. This is a shot that we still play. It's a show called Melodies of Christmas. It's at the Proctor's Theater in Schenectady, and the theater holds about 3,000 people a night. The show is 6 nights in a row, so we get about 18,000 people, and it's on CBS 6 television. This is the latest one from 2000, going into 25, 24, with the conductor. That's the New York State Symphony behind us, which has got about 100 people, and the choir, if we're spread out, it's got about 7, so it's 175 people that we're playing with. And we play one of our original songs called Melody of Peace that I've recorded with symphonies from all over the world, from Russia. First recording was the Prague Symphony. We've recorded it in the Canadian Symphony, Virginia Symphony, a lot of symphonies around, playing our song Melody of Peace. And the reason I'm really proud of this show and being part of it is that it's backed by Price Chopper and Freehoffer's Coffee, Freehoffer's Cookies, and CBS, and it has raised over $12 or $14 million for the Melody's Ward Cancer Ward for kids. So it's a great thing for us to be honored to play that show for that organization, and that's the conductor giving us the final big oomph of Melody of Christmas, our Melody of Peace, our song. And so that's really great. That's me playing accordion in Russia, because I did tour Russia before the politicians have destroyed everything. And, I toured Russia 7 times. And actually, there's a documentary called Woodstock, the Siberia Blues Express. And that's they used to give me the greatest accordions in Russia. That accordion was fantastic. And that's the shots. They also did great videos. One time we took a train, the Siberian Express, all across Russia with the Balalaika Orchestra. And that's one of the shots, me playing. And I would play with them and they would play with me. And really nice people, fantastic musicians. And I made the mistake in Siberia of asking to meet the greatest accordionist of Siberia. And sure enough, they showed up, and boy, could they play. It was remarkable. And we did a lot of great shows together. Always nice shot.
Good thing you didn't ask to play chess, because
that would be
really good at that too.
Over my head. Well, they're really proud of what they could accomplish, because it's hard to accomplish things there.
Oh yeah.
That's me playing down in Arizona on the desert with the Ronstadt family. And the Ronstadt family, Linda's brother, second into the left is Michael Senior Ronstadt, who is Linda's brother, and that's his sons. And a sax player, and myself. And what we would do is we go down and play on the border at a church down there, because they would have big Ronstadt family get-togethers the last Sunday of every month. The whole Ronstadt family was and is, tremendous mariachi singers and great Mexican players. Actually, Linda Ronstadt did the recording of her aunt, who sang mariachi, and Michael, her brother, playing there. Unfortunately, he's passed, was one of the greatest mariachi singers. It was great. And that's one of the family shows at a church on the border, playing the family reunion show. So, and it's nice I can play accordion, because her brother also played accordion, a cousin played accordion. And I'm surprised he's not in the shot, because he was up there a lot with us, but I guess somebody captured just myself playing. And that was good. Well, that's that's the Heathrow Airport, with the crew that came with us from Kingston, New York, to headline one of the big theaters in London with Mercury Rev. That's how big their following got. You saw the original picture of Mercury Rev with Levon and Amy, and they finally got so big that they were drawing 4,000 people a night. They said Garth should come and play. And there's Randy on the left, from the other drummer from the band, and Marie. And we should open up. So the 4 of us went and opened up the show for Mercury Rev and then played with them. And that's the picture from Heathrow Airport from us leaving. And we had a pretty good entourage with us. And that was on Virgin. They were on Virgin. So we had our own Virgin airplane and Virgin buses. And that was a nice tour. We toured around all of Europe at that time.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was a good experience. And then we're back to the Ronstadts. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's Terrence Simeon, who is, a fantastic accordionist playing. And I played on Terrence's record down in Lafayette, where he came from in his studio. And how we had to, witness the great Lafayette experience with Terrence. And that's John Platania in the middle, who was Van Morrison's original guitar player on Moondance and wrote all those great licks for Van, who should have also got a lot of the writing credit. And I think he does get a lot of writing credit with Van on a lot of records. And to this day, he's still with Van off and on. But he was there in Woodstock with us when he took the audition for Van, I think in 1968, 69, and got on the Moondance record. And Terrence has got a lot of his own records and a really nice human being. And he's the true deal. He's probably somebody who couldn't speak English till he was 15 or 16, only, spoke that Cajun, and a really, really good guy. And that's a nice picture. And that's me and John again, because we go out sometimes, play duo shows. And he played guitar with the Crowmatix for many years. We've had groups. Actually, we had groups since 1966, 67. And he plays just about on every Professor Louie and the Crowmatix record because he's full of tremendous musical hooks. If you ever want a guitar hook, you call John, and they're just coming out of him. He's on Chip Taylor's records and was Judy Collins' music director for a long time, and a lot of music directors. He's a tremendous musician. All right. Well, this is a special moment. The fellow on the left is Michael Falzarano, who is with Yorma and produced a lot of records with Yorma, was also with the New Riders of the Purple Sage. There I am wailing away, singing. The fellow on the right is Jesse McReynolds, who is a classic, and anybody who knows bluegrass knows Jesse McReynolds. Him and his brothers, Jim and Jesse, had a television show for about 15 or 20 years out of Pennsylvania. But, of course, he's from Virginia and best known in the bluegrass world. He's in the Bluegrass Hall of Fame, probably been in the Opry house. He brought me to the Opry to play, which was fantastic. He was probably in the Opry since 1953 or 1954. And he's always been an innovator in the bluegrass world, besides winning Grammys and things like that. He did the first Chuck Berry bluegrass record. And then me and him recorded, with, of course, other people, a Grateful Dead record, because the Grateful Dead were bluegrass musicians originally. Jerry Garcia loved bluegrass. And they used to come, Jim and Jesse, before they were the Grateful Dead, and took a lot of the licks from Jim and Jesse and from Jim. And Jerry was always appreciative of all that, because I worked with Jerry Garcia a few times and played his last, in the dressing room, played his last shows together. And we would play bluegrass records, me on the accordion, and he loved that bluegrass. So Jim and Jesse were well known. Jason McReynolds, one of the most open musicians and very, very, honoring kind of guy. He would give you a lot of credit. Well, that's the guy who gave me the name Professor Louie. Boy, it's amazing. Opened up all these pictures. I thought I was sending you too many. That's me and Rick doing a benefit for Radio Woodstock. Rick would do a lot of benefits because he always wanted to help the neighborhood. That was one of his sayings. And Rick, of course, was the bass player from the band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and one of the nicest guys in the band. Everybody's got personalities. He had one of the most open personalities. That's me and him. We would play duos together. We would travel, I got to say, the world together as two of us. We would just go to Europe for a weekend and come back. And that's us playing, doing a benefit. And Rick was a very good acoustic guitar player, because he would watch Muddy Waters and be able to play that bass lines and acoustic guitar at the same time, and a fantastic singer. So, and he liked the accordion. He always wanted me to play accordion. He knew the country songbook because his uncle was a country star. So we were probably playing some country and Western song right there, because he loved playing that country and Western repertoire. Maybe a band song here and there, but you got to be ready for the country and Western repertoire. Joe Louis Walker, who recently passed, one of the great San Francisco and Chicago blues guitar players, in the Blues Hall of Fame, of course, more than once. And me and him would play a duo show going to the New York State Fair at the Pan-African Village, because the Pan-African Village really liked me. And I think the NAACP, which is a great organization, always wanted me to play, of course, with somebody black since it was the Pan-African Village. And Joe Louis Walker was my first choice to play with because it was just great playing blues. And he also knew the gospel world, and he was from San Francisco, so knew all the psychedelic groups out there because he grew up in that Fillmore district. Because, one time Fillmore district was all black, and then it became hippies because it was cheap. So he saw the changeover. We'd have those discussions. B.B. King used to play it when it was a black club, and then one day he showed up and it was all hippies at the Fillmore. And so it was good playing with Joe.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
If we came over to your house right now, Professor Louie,
Yeah.
what would be in your iPod, boombox, on your stereo, in your car? What would be ready
Thousands
to play?
of CDs and thousands of albums, because people keep, these days, what's very interesting is people throw out all their albums and throw out all their CDs because they got them on their iPhones, right?
I keep them all. I have a storage bin, actually, a climate-controlled storage bin that has them all.
I have 3 or 4 storage rooms.
I'm sure you do.
Because, up here, we're still pretty rural up here where I live.
Towards the Woodstock area, right?
Yeah, and, I still take my garbage to the dump. Or, they call them transfer stations now.
Transfer
stations.
stations.
The best place to get CDs and records at the moment. Because so many people take them to the transfer stations, and the guys up there, they put them away for me. And then somebody recently just gave me a collection of thousands of CDs and vinyls, and I took them. I took them all.
It's a great one too. If you dig through the racks at Goodwill or even the Salvation Army,
tremendous
people
amount.
Donate stuff, or there's estates that get cleared out, and then I have found cassettes and CDs and albums, and all kinds of fantastic things that are nothing to somebody else who dispensed of them, or maybe somebody passed away and the family cleared out. They're like, oh, well, what is all this stuff? Let's just donate it. And then you come in and you're like, holy cow, this is gold. I used to love to. I spent hours at Tower Records with the headphones on, the Tower Records, listening to all of the different albums and songs. And I miss that sort of experience that we used to have.
Yeah, well, the thing is, people move, they give them, and I have a radio show up here on a very good station, 2 hours a week, and I pre-record it, and so I always need material, and I could play anything I want. It's an open radio station, which Professor Louie's Woodstock Rock and Review.
Oh, that's cool. What do you have coming up that you're excited about that you want to share?
Well, we just played a really great show last night. We're playing shows all the time.
Yeah,
which is nice, and we've played some great ones this summer.
Here's the website too; people can follow and see everything that's going on. Exactly,
that's the one you can find. Yeah, that's a good one. If you can't spell Crowmatix, sometimes I use ProfessorLouie.com, but I don't know exactly what it is. But it takes you to other places sometimes. I'm not sure why.
So there it is. Write it down. There's the spelling and everything.
And the schedule, everything's on this. So we got some great shows coming up. We got one coming up in Piermont, New York, which is a club I've been playing for years called the Turning Point. And that's a club you can, is open to anything. People have all kinds of music, so you play what you like. And then there's one down by Atlantic City called Lizzie Rose Room, which is a nice room to play. And then at the end of the month, we're I need to see my own schedule. We're playing a great festival in Pennsylvania called the Metzger Festival. And then we move on. We have one show, and we always play 1 or 2 shows a year in Woodstock. Playing a nice club called the Colony outside, so you can hold 400 or 500 people. And then we move on to Saratoga and play 2 shows at the oldest folk club in America, one of them called Cafe Lena. And then we have a show at a nice theater up that way, and then we start traveling, I think.
That's cool. Well, you've been doing this some 50 plus years and counting, my friend, and all aspects in the industry. You really are a music pro, but also a legend in many, many respects. And people love working with you, and you're incredibly talented, and you're a nice guy. You're authentic. You're the real deal. You tell it like it is. And you're in a sweet spot. I mean, you've put the time in, and you've graced us with all of these years of music. What are the blessings and joys that you look at, that you have, that keep you plugging away, creating, and being connected with all of us and wanting to inspire us through your art?
Well, thank you so much. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to mention the guys in the Professor Louie and the Crowmatix band, because they're out there hitting the road with me all the time. Some of them, they're really learning what's going on. Todd Myhan on the guitar, Miss Marie got Frank Campbell on bass, and I got a couple different road drummers because you need a few different road drummers because we hit it pretty hard. That's Dan Hickey right there, and there's Eric Puente and Stevie D, and I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two of the other ones that play with us, but that's a lot of them, and that's Frankie C there on bass and Miss Marie. So I gotta always appreciate it because I've been doing it so long that I'm on automatic. Miss Marie right there, myself, I'm automatic, and they have to leave home and leave their families. Luckily, Miss Marie can travel with me. She loves playing, part of the group, so we're not really, the only thing we're leaving home is our cat, and the cat comes with a babysitter and his own nurse. Cat's one of the luckiest cats I've ever met. And so it's great to be able to hit the road and see all our friends around the country and in Europe that we've been knowing for so long. That's people always ask me, isn't it hard? And of course it's hard. But the best part is to see people you see every couple of years or once a year or every 10 years, whatever the hell it is, even if it's every 20 years. And hopefully they're still alive. That's the real. That's a big one.
That's the big one. And also it sounds like you have a lot of joy and blessing in your life. And really, really amazing. So many great stories, so many legends you've worked with, collaborated with, and you've had an opportunity to, craft your own career. Really fantastic, Professor Louie. Did you want to play something quick to play us out? We would love that and really appreciate the generosity of time, and I truly hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you.
Oh, I have. Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you so much for having me on because I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of credits, and I really appreciate you showing those pictures because nobody's ever seen those pictures. I didn't even see them. I went through back files of old computers, sort of searching. So I'm definitely excited to be on your show, and I really appreciate it.
Professor Louie doing his thing, Grammy-nominated music legend extraordinaire, one of the nicest guys, a multi-talented guy who's been doing this for 50 years. Professor Louie, thank you for that. And thank you for all of your wit and wisdom and all of your time, generosity of time, stopping by the Jim Masters Show Celebrity Talk Show series. Really appreciate it. And I hope you had a good time with us and you'll come back and see us again. We always say for the guests, we will keep the porch light on for you. You're welcome back anytime, my friend.
All right, Jim. Well, anytime you invite us, we'll be here. We're hard to get rid of.
And congratulations on all the success and all the incredibleness that you've presented, because it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of miles and a lot of heart and soul to do what you've done and continue to do, my friend. You are the professor. And I really hope that you'll keep us abreast of everything that's happening. Keep me posted when, you're in the region, and we'll come see you. And it was a blast having you here. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it very much. Thank you. Good luck with everything. Have a great summer.
Thank you. You too. And come see us again and spread the word about the Jim Masters Show. We would love that. Okay.
Okay. You got it.
All right. And I grade the professor A+ on today.
That's really good for the case we got to go to college. That's really good.
You're the best, my friend. And say hi to Miss Marie too.
I will do. I'm sorry she wasn't eavesdropping. But
no, one day maybe we'll break bread and she'll be there.
Okay.
You're the best. And thanks for everything. Congratulations.
Thank
you. And congratulations on the new music too.
Oh yeah. That's really exciting for us.
Absolutely. And there's the website again. Check it all out, folks. I'm so excited. I'm speechless. Check it all out. It's right there on the website. They're touring, their music, and so much more. He's the best. Thanks, Professor. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, Jim. Take care of yourself now.
You too, my friend. Professor Louie joining us here on the show, Grammy-nominated music legend extraordinaire, very talented guy, of course, many years with the band, very, very popular, legendary group. And of course, there is the website for Crowmatix, which is what he is, Professor Louie and the Crowmatix now. And he's worked with some of the greats in the industry. He is one of the greats in the industry. And it was a real pleasure having him here. We thank Professor Louie for joining us. Louie on the Jim Masters Show. We thank you for joining us as well. If you enjoyed this episode, folks, give us a thumbs up, like on the YouTube channel. Share this link on your social media. That's right, direct from the YouTube channel. Share it. Spread the word about our show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop a comment below. The YouTube channel is Jim Masters TV. Subscribe to it. Click the notification bell so you never miss any of our episodes. And yeah, leave a comment for us as well. We would absolutely love that. That means the world to us when you do that and we hear from you. Don't forget to love one another, take care of one another, and don't forget to do the very same for yourself, gang. Always a pleasure to have you here on the Jim Master Show Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. It's always a blast when you're in the house. And we have so many great guests coming up, so many amazing people. You can also binge watch our past episodes on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds for you to enjoy. Take care and be well, everybody. It's a pleasure having you here. Thanks for all the great comments, all the love. We see it and we really appreciate it. Spread the word about JMS. We would love that too. Take care and be well. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, everybody, and cheers.